modern horror film is simply the result of decades of experimentation in the horror film industry, with the first horror film ever being made being the 1896 film The House of the Devil, made by Georges Méliès. This film would be the start of the modern horror film, which would go on to be innovated throughout the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, and 1930s. With one of these films, which was made in the 1910s, being the Golem Trilogy, which is a trilogy of 3 Golem films made throughout the 1910s, being that of the self-titled Der Golem from 1915, The Golem and the Dancing Girl from 1917, and The Golem and How He Came Into the World from 1920. These films are some of these early 20th century films that would pioneer the modern horror film, with their use of early special effects, use of color shading, and German expressionism. Some of these films are, however, lost media, with the only surviving film being the 3rd film of the trilogy, being titled How the Golem and How He Came Into the World. So today, I'll be talking about the Golem Trilogy. Paul Wegener was born on December 11th, 1874 in Arnoldsdorf, Germany, or modern-day Jarnowice, Poland, which I hope I pronounced right. Wegener would eventually start acting at the age of 20 in Germany before joining Max Reinhardt's acting troupe in 1906. However, in 1912, he would act in the 1913 film The Student of the Prague, which would be Wegener's first real big break in the film industry, and also be Wegener's first foray into German expressionism. And during the production of this film, Wegener would discover the Jewish legend of the Golem. Der Golem would start production in 1914 and would later be released in 1915. The film's plot follows an antique dealer while searching the ruins of a temple, who then finds the titular golem, and then resurrects the creature by finding a capsule and placing an incantation from a book into the capsule to bring back the creature from the dead, after 5 centuries of slumber. The antique dealer then decides to have the golem act as a loyal servant, doing labor. However, during his time working for the antique dealer, he starts to fall in love with the antique dealer's daughter. However, the daughter does not return the golem's love, who then starts to go on a murderous rampage. The film's climax atop the roof of a building, where after a struggle between a count and the golem, the daughter removes the capsule of the golem, causing the golem to fall onto the ground, shattering into dozens of pieces. With the film ending with a child and their mother coming across the remains of the golem. To my understanding at least, the film did pretty well in terms of reception at least, which would create the spark for a sequel that would be made 2 years later titled The Golem and the Dancing Girl. The Golem and the Dancing Girl was a German film released in 1917, and serves as a sequel to Der Golem and as the 2nd film in the Golem Trilogy. The film was apparently about a dancer who was attending a stage play adaptation of Wegener's Der Golem, who Wegener played himself. Wegener then overhears a woman profess her love for the Golem and reveals the fact that she owns a life-size statue of the Golem in her apartment. Wegener then bribes his way into the apartment of Helga, the dancer, in which they then embrace each other. An interesting thing to note, I have found that the most cited source of the plot might actually be unreliable, so just for now, remember that. The film basically had no impact on release, meaning it was probably a flop, which would contribute to the film's reservation. A few years later, in 1920, the last of the Golem films would be made, titled The Golem and How He Came Into the World. Golem and How He Came Into the World, which is also confusingly called just The Golem, is a film that was released in 1920, with the film acting as a prequel to the first Golem film, with the film taking place in 15th century Prague, specifically in the Jewish ghettos of the city, in which a rabbi creates a golem to protect the Jews of Prague from the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II, which saves the Jews of Prague. However, a series of astrological movements predict that a demonic spirit would possess the golem, which does happen and causes mass destruction. However, the golem would fortunately be put to rest with an amulet being removed from the golem. The film did astonishingly well, even playing in theaters for 2 months in a row, and playing to packed houses in the United States, with the film being restored in 1977 and later in 2000, with the film's soundtrack being found in 2018. But most importantly, this is the only fully found film in the Golem Trilogy. The amount of footage discovered from the first Golem film is small, to say the very least, The most famous discovered piece of footage is a 4-minute film fragment which shows the golem doing labor work for the antique dealer, and with the rest of the footage showing people running away from the golem, with the climax of the film showing the golem falling and shattered into pieces also surviving, with a few production stills and posters also surviving, with the most recent footage being found being a 7-minute film fragment showing the antique dealer reviving the golem, with more footage supposedly going to be released in the future. The status surrounding the second film, The Golem and that Anti-Girl, is much more complicated than it seems. To simply put it, the film is entirely lost, with only a few production stills and one promotional poster surviving, with the film nearly fading from existence. Which seems simple, right? Well, you know earlier how I said the most cited plot has an unreliable source? Well, that actually might contribute to the preservation status of the film. Let me explain. The Lost Media Wiki article on the Golem and the Dancing Ghost source is a Spanish website, and when finding the full text of the plot summary on the Spanish website, you find a conversation with the late Scottish-American author Fergus Quimplin McIntyre, who deserves a future video just by himself, and Spanish writer Antonia Tausit, discussing Fergus supposedly finding a decaying print of The Golem and the Dancing Girl in an Eastern European film archive, and having a well-known but not named employer of Fergus purchasing the copy of the film, and potentially restoring the copy to safer film stock. This may sound like great news, but I don't think most of you know who Fergus was as a person. Well, all you really need to know about him is that he was a serial liar that fabricated events of his own life, which really doesn't make his claim that reliable, with his only real source being himself. But the only part about his claim being true is the part about the film being a comedy, as the production stills and posters do not indicate the film is a horror film. And as of October of 2022, the film only has a few production stills and posters that currently exist today. The impact of the Golem films are undeniable, with some of the crew of the third film going on to work on much bigger projects like the Dracula film from 1933. However, their legacy of being lost is just as big as their impact on the horror film industry.